Well, that was just an absolutely awesome game, an epic encounter, tense from start to finish. I could not sit comfortably watching that. Tell me how you felt watching it. It will go down in history a little bit. I think we'll remember this one for a little while. Full of a fair amount of controversy as well, and a lot of talking points to come out of the game. However, despite all of that, the fact is South Africa have won 31-27 and deservedly winners. I'm going to run through sort of a lot of key moments in the game for first half, second half, and then I'm just going to give you my thoughts on overall the game itself. It's going to take a little while. Please be patient, sit down, relax. I think it's worth just going through all of it just for myself more than anything. I think making these videos helps me get through games like that as well. But look, let's start off with the first half. Great defence early by South Africa in that first few minutes in particular. All Blacks hot on attack. Blackadder should have passed to Caleb Clark unmarked on the left wing there, but there was a penalty infringement, South Africa yellow card, and then the All Blacks kicked the line out and got the maul, got the try. So a pretty good result, got a yellow card and a try for the All Blacks there. It was the perfect start really for the All Blacks, wasn't it? They converted on early territory and possession, and they had to start well. They had to be perfect. I think there was a missed opportunity, which we'll get to in a second. Rico Ioane, he had his foot on the line off the kickoff, I think it was. And he was very lucky to do that, so therefore the All Blacks got a scrum on halfway. And then from that, TJ Perenara kicked the 50-22 from that halfway scrum. But this was a pretty key moment. The All Blacks had basically a line out 10 metres out from the South African line, and had won the line out, had the ball, and TJ Perenara spoke to the referee inappropriately, no question there, and South Africa got the penalty. If the All Blacks had scored at that moment, with that momentum, I just feel like that was a very key moment, let's put it that way. Of course the South Africa player didn't roll away, but I don't know, I just wonder if the occasion got to the referee at that moment, the intensity of the crowd, the intensity of the occasion, and didn't appreciate TJ speaking to him that way. But anyway, look, a missed opportunity for the All Blacks. South Africa, they finally got some field position, sort of escaping from that moment. A couple of moves well executed by South Africa, and they missed a try because of the bounce of the ball, basically, after kicking through. The D-Mac did a chip kick from his own 22 at that point. Did someone not tell him that this was a test match at Ellis Park? But anyway, and then it was an incredible... so South Africa got the ball and got into good field position with a line out about 5-10 metres out of the All Black, from the All Blacks line. And it was just an absolute debacle at that moment from that line out. Look, it wasn't a try. There was a knock on. Happy to argue that. But it seemed to be a bit of a bobble. But the South African water boy having a chat with the ref to take his attention away from the big screen, although the video ref obviously had an opportunity to look at it and they deemed it a try. But anyway, I've never seen a water boy have a conversation with a referee like that. And then the AB's players obviously noticing that the replay had shown a bit of a bobble when in the scoring that try, walking out towards the referee to sort of appeal that, which you can't do when the kicker's about to kick. You can only start moving when that kicker starts moving. So that was obviously sort of breaking the rules there. And then the kicker, the South Africa kicker, had gone over time, and again, that part of that was probably because the South African water boy was trying to avert the referee's attention from the big screen. So just an incredible little moment. But anyway, after that very back and forth period of play for quite a while, there was a AB's All Blacks lost line out. Scott Barrett then turned it over straight from that line out. Then there was a not releasing penalty to South Africa. Damien Dialende playing very well and a couple of key turnovers. Sam Cane tackle on Khaleesi, forcing a knock on. And it just kept backwards and forwards for a while until there was the massive 60-metre penalty by South Africa, 8-7 at that point. Neither team able to really build momentum. There were quite a lot of mistakes, but handling errors, specifically probably from South Africa. Really, they weren't as clinical and key in certain moments, but yeah, also very good defence by both teams, and that obviously helps force mistakes at times. And then another South Africa handling error, and the All Blacks finally got into the front foot and score through Caleb Clark. The wingers combining on the same wing, which was quite cool. So yeah, so just a moment shift. I wouldn't say that All Blacks had any domination or a period of dominance there. And then Savia knocked on from that kickoff. And then there was a scrum penalty. South Africa, it looked like the South African prop on the opposite side to the referee had dropped first, but anyway, South Africa got that penalty and then kicked that penalty. Dialende got another ruck turnover after that kickoff, and then it was just a frantic finish to the first half. South Africa dropped goal missed as well. Beauden Barrett doing well to take a high kick, but not quite getting his timing right. He right on half time he kicked the ball out, but there was still enough time for the line out, but he just kicked the ball out. He didn't kick for distance, so it gave South Africa another attacking line out and another chance to score. But the All Blacks just holding on, literally just holding on. South Africa were unlucky not to score. South Africa not quite as clinical in the first half. There was a number of handling errors that were uncharacteristic. But however, they had more chances to score points probably, although the possession was dead even. I think the All Blacks had slight advantage on territory. But good defence by both teams. Plenty of turnovers, and hard to build momentum, wasn't it, for either side? The All Blacks needed to convert early territory to another score, because they did, as I said before, that TJ Perenara penalty being key. Score was 11-12 at half time, and a very even half all round. Second half, I missed sort of the first 5 minutes. I think we had pretty bad weather here in Auckland, where I'm living, but the atmospheric conditions meant that my recording, I couldn't watch it. But anyway, Geordie Barrett scored that intercept try after half time, and I just thought that should have been enough, really, for the All Blacks to just build momentum. I think they went into a bit of a shell. South Africa got a penalty, but the All Blacks then got a penalty, a pretty lucky technical penalty after that kickoff, and they scored 3 points straight away. In response, Sam Cane did a high tackle on Khaleesi. They had to sort of look back at that. I think the video ref had a very good look at it, but decided that it was just a penalty, and Sam Cane would have had his heart in his mouth there for a little bit after what happened at the World Cup. And probably lucky to stay on the field. Let me know what you think. I didn't actually get to see that. I didn't get to rewind and try and find that. They weren't really showing it on the TV. But anyway, the score at that point, South Africa taking a penalty, 17-22. And then Damian McKenzie kicked a contestable kick slightly too far. So this was an attacking kick in the South African half, and it just drifted into the 22. South Africa taking the mark, but that was just giving the ball away and wasn't really contestable, was it? But South Africa didn't clear very well, so that was lucky for the All Blacks. The All Blacks had a good line-out win, deep right at the back, and good pick-up by TJ Perenara, pretty much at his toes, and a great backline move to score in the corner through Caleb Clark, and missing the conversion, but the score is 17-27. 4 tries to the All Blacks by that point, and a 10-point lead. Game started to open up from that point, and it was really hard to keep up. And also atmospheric conditions meant that I got to sort of cut out a little bit from my viewing, but it was a very back and forth, and no one really keen to sort of settle it down. But yeah, anyway, the All Blacks won, had an own line out on their own 5 metre. And this was a pretty key moment as well. They won that line out, got the penalty. They won the line out from that penalty. They kicked it out into South Africa's 22. It wasn't a 50-22. Just keeping that territory, or trying to keep that territory. Turnover penalty at that line out to the All Blacks. They kicked it out 10 metres out from South African line. A massive turnaround. But they weren't, from their own 5 metre line to just 5-10 metres out of the South African line, but a massive turnaround, but they couldn't convert that into points. Quagga Smith turning over at that point. Just those key moments, just momentum shifts, and then South Africa turn it down and end up in New Zealand's 22, but for the bounce of the ball, they would have possibly have scored, although that South African player shouldn't have kicked. I think it was the fullback. But South Africa got a couple of penalties, opting for lineouts. just building some momentum. You could just tell they know what to do in those situations. I'll talk about the key men for South Africa in a minute, but South Africa got a couple of penalties, as I said, opting for lineouts. They drew a yellow card from the All Blacks and then converted a try under the post to Quagga Smith. They had a 3-point advantage to South Africa with 10 minutes remaining, and the All Blacks were down to 14 men. Absolutely key. Finau then got bumped off when he came on, so welcome to the game, buddy. And then Jordie Barrett putting it out after a great kick. Oh, South Africa sort of clearing out of their 22. Jordie Barrett took the catch, but it was right on the sideline. He couldn't do anything with it, so South Africa got that line out, and the pressure just went up. There was a lot more kicking. Players were pretty knackered by the looks, certainly the New Zealand players. Finau then caused a penalty. He couldn't have got out of that maul. I don't know what was going on. It didn't impact on the maul, but the referee did warn him. I mean, the South African players were going to hold him there, weren't they? They were going to draw the penalty. But anyway, then the South Africa got a 5-metre line out from there. South Africa playing well with composure, and then they converted that try to take the lead. Apologies, that was the Quagga Smith try to take the lead. The previous try was not to take the lead. They were 3 points behind. South Africa were 3 points behind, but with the yellow card, so they had the advantage. So anyway, this is the try that South Africa took the lead, and they just knew what to do. There was a couple of plays later. Sam Derry's the lock knees touched the ground. Ardie Savia was at a penalty. I mean, lots of little things, but the reality is South Africa shut the All Blacks out from that point, and the All Blacks just didn't quite have much to offer. So look, and that was the end of it. South Africa bench, again, the difference really. Eben Etzebeth was massively key in this one. If he didn't play, I think it would have been a different result. If I'm honest, I think he had that much impact. He came on quite early. It was late in the first half, so he played significant minutes. It was sort of he got a knock or something on his arm at some point, but he played through and was one of the best performances from him I've seen, and he's been around a long time and played pretty well. Peter Steph du Toit, Malcolm Marx, absolutely key. There might have been some inexperience on that South African bench, as I said in an earlier video, but the key guys, they just know the plan and they keep that message in the front of mind, certainly for the younger players. This is what we do, we'll do this. And it just flowed. They all were on the same page. The South African backs were against the wall too, of course, with 20 minutes to go. They battled their way out of it. The forward split, 6-2 split, really stretched the back reserves because there were a couple of injuries to South African backs. But they just still kept going. The squad is tracking really well. South Africa can and will likely be better too. The All Blacks bench is still not providing the impact required. Inexperienced, there was 3 or 4 players that had played a number of, maybe 2 or 3 tests. And they just seemed overawed in the situation when coming on. The discipline deteriorated. The All Blacks couldn't clear out of their 22 very well, and it has been a big problem this year, all year. But in altitude, it shouldn't have been a problem. So they just weren't kicking well. And then the pace of the game, fatigue and altitude, All Blacks just couldn't keep up. The South African team increased that pace and they knew how to manage that better. I could tell by the actions of the players how they were handling each situation. The South Africa players just looked in control. They knew what they were going to win, basically, but they knew what to do in any scenario. And the All Blacks were just all over the place. There was no structure, no control. Well, there was, but you know what I mean. Like, you could just see the contrast between the two teams. I mean, with the ABs leading by 10 points with about 20 to go, that should have been enough in a close test match. And against any other team in the world, it would have been. But not against South Africa, especially in South Africa. Look, from a reserves point of view, of course, that was a big issue for the All Blacks. It might be more of a hindsight type thing, but maybe they should have come on earlier when the South African reserves came on. The momentum for South Africa didn't start when those reserves came on at the beginning. The All Blacks were still dominating at that point, and maybe that's when the reserves for the All Blacks should have come on, because you wanted to keep the momentum going rather than letting South Africa gain that momentum. Also, if our bench is a bit of a problem, the All Blacks bench is a bit of a problem, those guys need more game time and more experience. So anyway, and then you could look, that try shouldn't have been. There was some penalties that shouldn't have been. I'm not going to go into that too much. The reality for me is the All Blacks didn't finish well enough to win this game, and South Africa did. And that is it in a nutshell. You look at penalties. The All Blacks conceded 14 penalties. South Africa 5. Okay, maybe that was the influence by the referee, but I know that 90+% of those are legit, and the All Blacks just didn't handle that situation very well. The All Blacks will be disappointed for sure, absolutely. This one they really targeted, and they had a bit of wanted a bit of redemption from the final last year at the World Cup, but they'll gain a lot from this experience. It's important to step back and look at those positives. The line-out was improved significantly, and it had to. But it was a much better lineup than we've seen from the All Blacks. The scrum was even. The midfield played a lot better. Geordie Barrett playing his best game this year so far. The forward play was stronger with improved clean-outs, and that was probably a big difference with certainly Scott Barrett, but perhaps Sam Cane as well. And they had a great start to the game. They just needed to keep that going. South Africa can get better too. As I've touched on, they didn't have a great first 40 minutes, and we're only 1 point behind, and could have probably been in the lead with if the drop goal was successful and maybe another penalty. Let's look at the Rugby Championship just quickly as I finish up. South Africa are comfortably at the top of the table. The All Blacks would need to win next week against South Africa, and Argentina would need to beat South Africa in one of their games for the All Blacks to at least have a chance. And of course, if the All Blacks would still need to beat Australia a couple of times. At the time of recording this, Argentina are playing Australia right at the moment. The score is 10-7. It was just an awesome game. I want to hear what your thoughts are. There'll be so many more talking points and elements of the game to unpack. It was a game for the ages. The crowd was incredible. You cannot fault that Ellis Park crowd. They didn't want to leave after the game. I mean, they are very passionate fans, and I think that also helped South Africa get over the line in a very close game. Awesome to watch. The two best teams absolutely in the world go at it head to head. Well, my opinion, I mean, the All Blacks aren't the best in the top four, or they are the top four, but I think Ireland and they're not exactly 1 and 2 at the moment. But anyway, that game is pretty, South Africa All Blacks are pretty much the best games in Test rugby. Let me know what you think. If you have watched this and tortured yourself through all of this, thank you so much. It's Father's Day here in New Zealand. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. And look forward to next week for sure. Thanks.